I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Hello, I'm James Brown, and on behalf of the Eastern Church of Christ located in Toronto, Canada, I'd like to welcome you to today's edition of Walking Through the Bible, a podcast where we seek to study the Bible and the Bible alone. Please stick around afterwards for information on how you can contact us. But for now, please go to the book of Matthew, and we'll turn you over to Jeremy Dieselkamp for our study of the day.
Thank you, James, and welcome to all of our viewers. This is the 22nd lesson in our study of Matthew. Yesterday, we studied Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 to 26, discussing how Jesus not only told his followers not to murder, but he also told them not to be angry with their brother without cause. If you missed that episode, you can find it and all of our other podcasts on multiple platforms by going to one of the different sites listed on the bottom of the screen. Today, we're going to begin with Matthew chapter 5, verse 27 and read through verse 32. The text that you'll see on the screen is from the New King James Version, but you're welcome to follow along with any version that you have. So let's now read Matthew chapter 5, beginning at verse 27. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish, than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish, than for your whole body to be cast into hell. Furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife, for any reason except sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. In this section of chapter 5, Jesus is explaining to his followers how their righteousness must exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. In yesterday's episode, we talked about how Jesus' disciples weren't simply not to murder. They weren't even to be angry with their brother without cause. In our reading today, Jesus turned to adultery. Adultery is another sin that is condemned in the Ten Commandments. It is the seventh commandment found in Exodus 20, verse 14. As we've said before, Jesus is largely commenting on the law of Moses, but what he is saying is applicable to us today because these laws are also contained in the law of Christ. In the New Testament, adultery is condemned in many places, including 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9. The Jews had obviously been taught that as long as they didn't physically commit adultery, they could lust in their hearts and not sin. But Jesus taught that, like murder, if his followers were to be regarded as righteous by God in his kingdom, not only wouldn't they physically commit adultery, they wouldn't even lust after someone in their heart. That's because lust that begins in the heart often will lead to physical adultery. As such, lust and adultery, like with murder and anger without cause, would be able to condemn someone to hell if left unforgiven. The solution that Jesus gave to their lusting after someone is quite extreme and not meant to be taken in a literal sense, but is meant to show the seriousness of sin. He said, if your right eye offends you or causes you to sin, pluck it out, for it is better to enter into eternal life with one eye than with two eyes to be cast into hell. The same thing goes with your right hand. Again, Jesus wasn't promoting self-mutilation, but he is saying for us to remove anything from our lives that will cause us to sin, even if removing such will cause us personal hardship, for it is better to suffer a little hardship in this life and go to heaven than to live comfortably and go to hell. While on the topic of adultery, Jesus turned to divorce. As we'll find in Matthew 19, divorce has never been God's intention from the beginning, but was a concession by God and regulated under the law of Moses. In Deuteronomy 24, 1-5, the process for divorce was laid out. Divorce wasn't permissible for every cause, but if the man found some uncleanness in his wife, sexual misconduct that could be less than adultery, he could give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away. Reading Deuteronomy 24, we find no restriction on remarriage for either party except that the man couldn't remarry his wife once she remarried. Jesus here, though, taught that if his followers were going to be righteous before God, that the act of divorce and remarriage was going to change, for Jesus was going to return to God's original intention for marriage, which is marriage for life. He taught that anyone who divorces their spouse except for fornication, the New King James Version incorrectly translates this as the looser form, sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries her that is divorced for any cause commits adultery. Why would divorcing your spouse for any cause other than fornication cause her to commit adultery? because you're making it more likely that she will remarry, something that Jesus says in this verse would be adultery. Causing her to commit adultery isn't immediate, but let's not go placing stumbling blocks in front of people, enticing them to sin. Jesus did say, however, that if one spouse divorces the other spouse for fornication, a word in the Greek which means actual illicit sexual relations with someone, the divorcing spouse doesn't cause her to commit adultery, for the other spouse has already committed adultery. They thus aren't guilty of causing someone else to sin. What is interesting is that this passage does not give the one who divorces their spouse for fornication permission to remarry. We'll talk about that issue when we come to Matthew 19. With that, our time is up for today. Please join us, Lord willing, tomorrow when we will continue our study of Matthew, beginning with Matthew 5:33.
Thank you, Jeremy. And to our viewers, we also thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Should you have a question or comment, please leave it below or email it to answerintheword@gmail.com. We'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. We hope you'll join us, Lord's willing, tomorrow when we will be continuing on our study in the book of Matthew. Goodbye for now and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my